Hi guys, welcome back to Dinner Guide. I'm your host and chef, Sheena Amario. Today we're going to be making a vegan potato and peas curry with some rice. Now if you're not familiar with what the term vegan means, it's basically just someone who does not eat any meat or any animal products. So that's what I'm going to be making today. So yes, this is also a vegetarian dish. But that's just the difference between the vegan and the vegetarian. The vegetarian does eat some animal products, but the vegan eats none of the above. So to start off with the ingredients, we're going to be having some peas. Like I've said, it is a peas and potato curry. And we're going to be having some peas as well as some tomatoes and then celery and carrots. The celery here is optional. And then the potatoes, the rice. And then for the spices that I'm using and oils, I'm using coconut oil, some tomato paste, some whole cumin seeds. This is whole cumin seeds, as well as some cumin powder, and then some curry powder, some salt, some black pepper, some sugar, and some chili, as well as some turmeric. And of course, onion and ginger, garlic. I always have to use my ginger and garlic, you know me. So to get started, we're going to start off with our rice, and all we're going to do is just fry our rice just a little bit. So I'm going to start that off. Now usually I like to fry my rice just slightly before I add in the water. So I'm just going to put on my stove for my pot to get ready. Okay, that's good. And then I'm going to add some coconut oil. So I'm using coconut oil just because I like coconut oil, which you don't have to use. You could just use regular oil here. And by regular oil, I mean corn oil, sunflower, whichever oil you'd like to use. It's up to you. And then I'm going to just go ahead and add my rice. Now, I know some of you at home are going to be like, but you haven't washed your rice. Well, when you use good quality rice, I'm using Royal Umbrella Jasmine rice. So when you use good quality rice, you don't need to wash it because it's already clean by itself. It already comes clean. So usually I skip that step. But then if you're using the rice that comes in a sack, the one that you have to weigh in Kiswahili, then you have to pima, that one. So you kind of have to wash it because you kind of don't know where it's been, and it's like traveled a lot. It comes in a ngunia. Ngunia is a sack for those for you are not Kenyan. So you kind of have to wash it. But if you're using a good quality rice like I am, then you can skip that process. So to go ahead, my oil is already hot. Oh, and that's a bit too hot. I got carried away with the talking. So I'm going to reduce my heat here. I wanted it hot but not too smoking because I don't want my rice to brown immediately. I just want to toss it. So I'm just going to let this cool briefly before adding my rice. So that's why I'm swirling my pan here. Then I'm going to go ahead and add my rice since I've seen the smoke has now gone down. So add your rice, and then we're going to give this a nice stir. Like I've said, I like stirring my rice. I just feel like it gives it a nice aroma. The nuttiness, it kind of like helps it out. So I like really frying my rice. And also because I'm using coconut oil, I want all that oil to get into my rice. So that's the main reason. So once your rice is well coated and everything looks nice and glossy, like you can see, then I'm going to add my water, my liquid. Now depending what liquid you have here, you could use whatever is available for you. So what I'm using is just the same measurement of my cup. As a rule of thumb, anytime you make rice, always just use whatever measurement you've had. So whether it's a cup this size or a cup this size, if you measure this with the rice, then use 2 cups of water. So it's always 1 part to 2 parts of liquid. That's the simplest way to make your rice and to get it fluffy. But like I've said, if you're using rice that's not the kind I'm using, I'm going to add a bit more water there since that cup was not all the way full. So like I was saying earlier, if you're using the rice that I'm using that's good quality sort of rice, then that always works out perfectly. But if you're not, then you kind of want to make sure that you wash your rice like I said, and even go ahead and even soak it so it doesn't have so much starch and it's going to cook evenly. So once that's done, we're going to bring this to a little boil, and then I'm just going to add my heat here so that can come to a boil. And then in the meantime, we're going to start off with our onions. But you guys are going to go on a break as I start off with my onions so that when you come back, I'll have started off with the onions, and we can get ahead and start cooking the curry. Like I've said, we're making a vegan potato curry today. So I'm going to go ahead and just start with my onion, and the rice is going on, so that when you come back, we'll continue from here. So see you after the break. Hi guys, welcome back to Dinner Guide. I'm your host and chef, Sheena Amario. Now if you just tuned in, I was actually just chopping my carrots and my onions, carrots. Well, I'm going to chop my carrots anyway. So actually today we're making a vegan dish, and we're making a vegan potato and peas curry, as well as some rice. Now I went ahead and just chopped my onions, which I'm going to add into my pot to just start frying. And if you just tuned in, I put my rice to just start off. Like I always do in the kitchen, just try and multitask and start off with whatever needs to be cooking in the beginning. So I've added my onions. I'm going to put on the heat, but first I wanted to mention to you, if you're making rice, always make sure that once it's come to a boiling point like my rice has, you simmer it. So I've gone ahead and lowered my heat to the lowest possible, and then from there you kind of want to make sure that you actually seal off any holes that you have inside your pot. So like mine, the lid has a hole, so I like to seal it off, and the reason for that is just to make sure that no moisture is getting lost. So basically the steam is going to cook your rice, and it's going to steam up really nicely. So you always want to make sure anytime you're making rice, just make sure it's very well enclosed and it's going to cook evenly, and make sure it's simmered and at the lowest possible heat. Mine just went off as I was trying to show you, so I'm just going to simmer it to the lowest possible heat. And then now we're going to get started and start frying our onions. So for the onions, I'm just going to go ahead here and put on my stove. And then we're just going to add some oil. I'm going to use olive oil for this, but you could use whatever oil. Remember, I use coconut oil for my rice, just because I like coconut oil. So you could go ahead and use coconut oil for the same, or just use olive oil. I'm going to go ahead and use some olive oil. Okay, and I have to put that on again. My stove today seems to not want to operate with me. So I'm just putting on my stove here. And then I'm going to be adding some celery and some carrots into my potato and peas curry, just to give it some more character. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get my celery and my carrots. And so for the celery here is absolutely optional. You don't have to use it, but I really like the taste of celery, so I went ahead and got some. So I'm just going to go ahead and just slice this so that I can add it to my onions, because all this is going to fry together. And I'm just giving this a nice chop. So it's not very small, not too large. So just a rough chop here, but I'm kind of still keeping it uniform, so everything is still about the same size. So add your celery, and if you've not tried celery before, I suggest you do. It does have a really nice, I've mentioned a peppery sort of like taste, earthy taste. So I really like it. So it's something you could definitely try out, and you can easily get it in the market, certain supermarkets. So don't be afraid to go out and try it. But if you don't have it, then it doesn't mean you don't have to cook the dish. You can cook the dish, just eliminate the celery. And for the celery, you could also have it raw. The same way you eat your carrots raw, you could do the same thing for your celery. You could just go ahead and get a bite of the celery. It usually has a nice sort of peppery taste, like I've mentioned. And it works really well with dips as well. So something like a hummus dip, which is basically like a chickpeas dip. Or you could make like avocado and dip that inside it. So find ways to eat your vegetables raw. So I'm just giving this a stir. So I've only added my onions here and my celery and my carrots now that I've added. And then to that, I'm going to be adding some garlic. So a good amount of garlic because I like garlic, as well as some ginger. And then for the tomatoes, I'm actually going to be blending the tomatoes. So I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. But for the tomatoes, you actually don't have to blend them. I'm just choosing to blend them just because there's a certain texture I'm looking for. I'm looking for my sauce to be a bit sort of like smooth, not too chunky. And that's the reason why I'm blending my tomatoes, and also for more juice, because when you blend the tomatoes, it gives it a little bit more juice and body. So that's the main reason I'm blending my tomatoes. But if you didn't want to and you wanted to taste the actual taste of your tomatoes, then you don't have to. You could just go ahead and use your tomatoes just chopped. So I'm going to add some ginger. So all I've done is just peel the ginger. And I'm going to give this a nice rough chop. Now I like using ginger. Again, I always say some of the ingredients I use are always optional. You don't have to use everything that I do. Now ginger always has this nice kind of kick. So if you're into that, then use more ginger. If you're not, then use less ginger. So I'm going to add my garlic, and this is a lot of garlic. Like I've said, I love my garlic, so I like to go ahead and just add it in my food. A good amount. And also, if you're not a huge fan of chopping your ginger and garlic, you could actually just get a grater. It will save you the hassle, and then just grate your ginger and garlic. Or you could also buy the store-bought stuff, but ginger and garlic in Kenya is not expensive, so I don't see why you wouldn't buy the fresh one, which you could actually even blend yourself and put it in the fridge for later. So all these are things you could do to just make your cooking easy at home. So I've chopped my ginger and garlic. I'm going to add it now to my mixture that has my onions, celery, and carrots. I'm going to give this a stir. Then we're going to be adding our spices. I'm going to give this a nice stir. And let that just be aromatic. So before I add the spices, I'm going to let that be just a little bit aromatic. In the meantime, I'm going to be chopping my tomatoes. So for the tomatoes, like I've mentioned, I'm planning to put them in the blender just because I want to have that sort of smooth texture from them, and I also want them to be a little bit more bodied, so to get most juice out of it. And the easiest way to do that is just to blend. So for this, I'm just going to give this a rough chop, because the blender is going to do all the work for me. And sometimes cooking with the blender, actually, it makes your cooking very easy, because now you don't have to wait for your tomatoes to get soft and all mush before adding your everything else. So those are just small tips to consider anytime you're trying to cook your food quickly. If you have a blender, if you blend your tomatoes, then your cooking process is a lot faster. You could even actually go the extra mile and blend your onions as well as your tomatoes, and then you have the base of your sauce already, and all you have to add to it is just some spices. So all these are just small techniques that you can use at home, again, to just make your cooking just a little bit easier and a little bit faster. So I'm almost done chopping my tomatoes, and for this you could actually use the store-bought tin that usually has like the canned tomatoes. You could go ahead and use that. And if you've been watching me on Dinner Guide, then you know that I do tend to use tinned tomatoes here and then. So I'm now adding my tomatoes inside my jar. This is the jug from the blender. So that's all I'm doing, just adding them in here, just so that they can get ready to be blended. And like I was saying, you could use the store-bought tinned tomatoes. Those have a lot of juice in them, and I'm not above using tinned tomatoes. I actually like using tinned tomatoes because, one, they take out the hassle. So that's just something you could consider using. That's what I'm looking for, my paper towel to just take my hands. So always, anytime you're blending something, your blender may be strong enough, but I always suggest just a little bit of water or liquid in it, just so it can help the blender along. So I'm going to cover that and then give this a stir my mixture, that is. So the mixture of my ginger, garlic, celery, onions, carrots. Smelling aromatic already. It smells good. So we're going to go ahead while that is still going on, and then now just come to our blender here and then just blend. So for my blender, I'm just going to give this a blend. And that was the main reason why I was saying it's so fast. When you blend your ingredients, it takes out a lot of cooking time. Okay, so that's good enough. So I'm going to place this aside, and then now I'm going to add my spices, just because now I can smell everything. My garlic is aromatic and started to brown just slightly, so I'm just going to go ahead now and add my spices. And to this, I'm going to start off with my cumin. So add your cumin. I'm using whole cumin here, as well as ground cumin. Now the reason I'm using whole cumin is just because I like the flavor. So add your whole and your ground, as well as your curry powder. So the curry powder, I'm giving it a good amount because, like I said, we're making a vegan potato and peas curry, so it is a curry. So it does need a good amount of spices. Then I'm just going to stir this. And my heat seems to have gone off again. This happens with my stove sometimes, so I'm just going to put it back on. Okay, there we are. So I'm just going to let this, to just stir this together so the spices can come all together before I add anything else. Now I say the whole cumin here is optional, just because I like the flavor of the cumin. That's the main reason I'm adding it. And I'm going to go ahead and add our tomatoes that I've blended. So I'm just going to get those close to me. So for this dish, there's not much else that's happening other than you adding your spices, your ingredients, and then waiting for it to now just stew down slowly. And then we're going to be also adding some tomato paste. So I'm going to go ahead and just add a little bit of tomato paste. The tomato paste here is for the color, as well as it will thicken your sauce just slightly. And whatever other spices I haven't added, I'm now going to add them. So I'm going to add a bit of chili powder. So if you're not very big on the chili powder, then you don't have to add it. A bit of some black pepper. Like I always say, I love my black pepper. So a good amount of that. And some turmeric. Now the turmeric is mainly for the color. It will give your sauce a nice yellow tint color. But because I'm using tomato paste as well, it's going to kind of like balance that out. So we're just going to give that a stir. And already the spices here are so aromatic, I can smell them. And that's why I said I wanted to add the whole cumin first, just so I could smell it toast. Oh, that smells amazing. So from this stage, once your spices have had some time to toast and come together, just going to add a little bit more turmeric. And then set this aside. And then we're going to go ahead and now just add our tomatoes that I've blended. Then just stir this gently before adding our potatoes. So we're going to give this a nice stir. And then before we taste that, we're just going to let all the flavors come together. Now the spices are going to fill up the room, and it's going to get a little bit heated. And sometimes when you feel like coughing, that's what I was coming to. That's the spices filling up the room, combining together in the pan. That's the main reason. So I'm going to add a little bit of water. Whew, spices again. So I'm adding the water here just to help me with the remaining sauce that was in here, because I don't want to waste anything, and I'm just going to add it into my sauce for my curry. And already the color looks beautiful in there. So what I'm going to go ahead now is just get my potatoes and just chop them up, then add them to my sauce. So like I said, so if it does get a little bit spicy in the kitchen, you might want to take like a small break and just cough, because that does happen. Sometimes I kill myself with the spices that I add to my food. Woo! Like I said, the spices, it does happen sometimes. So I'm just going to go ahead now and add my potatoes. So all I'm doing here is just chopping my potatoes to quarters. And then after you're done chopping your potatoes into quarters, we're going to add them now into our curry. So for the curry, I use store-bought curry mix spices like you saw, but you could definitely go ahead and buy different spices and mix those up. So spices like cumin powder, like I used, danajira if you wanted to, some garam masala, all those spices, and then just mix everything up. But I just find it easier to work with the store-bought that's already mixed for you. And it's the easiest way, again, to get you guys cooking at home, because I definitely want you to try out the spices. And if you have like a whole array of spices, I feel like you're going to shy away from wanting to try the recipe. So I'm going to give this a taste, because I can see it's come to like a nice bubble, so I know the spices have combined. So I'm just going to give this a taste. Yes, the spices have combined. So the seasoning, I'm going to add salt. If you do remember, I have not added any seasoning in this. And you can definitely feel the kick of the chili. I can actually taste it. So I'm going to add my potatoes and then now add my salt. For most times, I always say it's better to season whatever if you're adding spices after you've tasted your food. Just because if you add too much salt at the beginning and you haven't added other spices, it's going to be hard for you to take out certain items. But always taste your food with every stage so that you can season it with every layer of everything you're adding in. So my potatoes have been added, and all we're going to do is just let this cook. We're just going to simmer this for about 10-15 minutes until the potatoes are fully cooked. I'm just going to let that cover, and then we're going to be going on a break soon so that my potatoes can cook, so that when you guys come back, our peas are already ready. I went ahead and boiled my peas here, so they're nice and vibrant and green. And what I like to do with my peas is just boil them shortly for about 5 minutes or so, just until they're just cooked, and then I set them aside, run them with cold water, the whole blanching process, run them with cold water, and then just freeze them, so that when you need them, you can just get them straight from the freezer and use them as they are. And they tend to have a nice bite to them. They're very fresh still, so I really like working with my peas that way. And as you can see, the color is retained, and I always like adding them at the last moment. So basically at the last complete moment, that's when I like adding my peas. So you could go ahead and eat those just as they are. So for my potato curry, it's looking really, really good. The colors have come together. So I'm just going to give this another taste just before I cover it. So the salt has brought everything together. Like I said, if I could feel the chili, but the salt has brought everything together. So they've like kind of like married into each other, and it just tastes amazing. So I'm going to just let that simmer, because now the potato is going to release some of its starch, and it's going to get a little bit thicker than it is right now. We're going to put this on the lowest heat possible so the potatoes can have time to cook. So about 10 to 15 minutes until the potatoes are cooked. Then we're going to add our peas. So we're going to go on a short break to wait for our potatoes to cook, and when we come back, we'll be adding our peas and we'll be plating up. So see you guys after the break. Hi guys, welcome back to Dinner Guide. I'm your host and chef, Sheena Amario. If you're just tuning in, today we're actually making a vegan dish. Now a vegan is just somebody who does not eat any meat products or any animal products for that matter. So they don't eat meat and they don't eat animal products. So what we're making today is a vegan potato and peas curry with some rice. And we actually, before we went on break, left the potatoes, and now they're fully cooked. They've been cooking for about 15 minutes or so. And they're fully cooked. And remember, I mentioned my peas here were already boiled. So all I'm going to do is just add them. So you're going to give this a nice stir, and like I mentioned, the potatoes will release their own starch, and they're going to make your sauce nice and thick. So if you have a look, our curry is looking really, really good. So most times a curry is not kind of like a stew, because a curry is very heavy. It's got a nice heavy body to it and a bit of spices. It's usually a bit thick compared to like a stew. So if you have a look here, you'll notice that our curry is nice and thick. And the potatoes, like I mentioned, have helped thicken that up. So I'm going to go ahead now and add my peas. And I'm just going to add some of my peas, and then I'll add some more right at the end just for the color. So I like to have my food with a lot of green in it. So that's the reason I mentioned I like to add my peas right at the last moment, because the color is going to be retained much better compared to if you add it right at the beginning. You get to see the beautiful peas. So that's fully cooked. So I'm just going to cover this. And you'll notice if you joined us, I mentioned about the little hole. If your pot has a hole, always just cover it, because that will just help build up the steam a lot more. So I've taken it out from my rice, because my rice here is ready. So we have a look. And that's how it was earlier. Remember I mentioned to always cover your rice with the hole, with a little bit of some foil, just to help keep all the steam inside. So now since I'm making my potato dish, I'll just let the steam continue in there. So my rice here is fully cooked. So what I'm going to do is just fluff it up. So I'm just going to go ahead and fluff it up. So if you have a look here, my rice is nice and white, so beautiful. And that's why I said I like using the Royal Umbrella jasmine rice, because it smells so fragrant and it's very nice and light. It always just puffs up. So that's why I really like using it. So I'm just going to give this a taste, because remember I use coconut oil. So I know the coconut flavor is going to come through. And yes, it does. That's the main reason why I personally like using coconut oil, because the flavor is just so different. It's very rich in depth. So that's something you could consider at home. Instead of using your normal oil, just try something different. So I'm going to go ahead now and plate my rice. So I'm just going to get a spoon, or something that's easy for me to scoop my rice with. We're just going to plate it here. And I'm just going to garnish this with some dania, because that's what I have in hand. So I'm just going to go ahead. Ignore my mess. So I'm just trying to build my rice up a little bit. So that's our nice rice, looking nice and fluffy and gorgeous. So to that, I'm going to be adding some dania, just to give it a little bit of color. Just very little dania. I could also add some chili to that actually, if I wanted to. Again, it's just going to create a little bit of a pop. And so for this dania, I'm also going to be adding a little bit of dania to my curry. Remember, I haven't added any herbs to my curry actually. And you see, so most times whenever you add like a little bit of some color, the dish just changes by itself. It looks completely different. And then you could go the extra mile if you wanted to. This is totally optional. And just add a little bit of some chili, just very little. Not much that you're going to notice, but it's going to be noticed with the color. So just sprinkle a bit of the chili just around your rice. So very little, like I've said. So this again is just creating some character on your rice. So there we go. So for my stew that's now ready, remember I've just added my peas, so I've just put them in last minute so they can warm up. Oh, and my curry looks so good, looks so nice and rich and thick, which is all the things that I'm looking for. So I'm going to add my remaining herbs in there, and I'm going to get some more herbs. For this, you could add some parsley if you wanted, but I went with dania just because I had dania, and just because again in Kenya I know we're very used to using dania, so you can go right ahead and just use dania for that. So I'm giving this a nice chop, and you could also use whatever other herbs you wanted. So example, something like basil, you could use basil. But I always feel like anytime you're using like the Indian kind of spices, so like the turmeric, the cumin, I always feel like dania goes best with such spices. But that's just, it could be my own preference. So so you could try out and see what works for you. So I'm going to use the same spoon here just because I don't want to make another spoon dirty and have more washing up to do, so I'm doing what you at home would do. So I'm going to get my bowl and we're just going to plate our nice curry in here. Yum. So the colors in this look so good, colorful. You can definitely see everything in here. So I'm just going to try and get some peas so you can see them some more. And there you go. So a little bit of the stew. And then I usually like to just put this a little bit down just so the sauce can disperse itself evenly. And then we're just going to place that there. So that's looking really, really pretty. We're going to get some more peas and just sprinkle some more on top. And then we're going to get our herbs. And again, just garnish a little bit of your herbs on top. Not too much, just a little bit. And there you have it. So that's our vegan potato and peas curry for you today. I hope you enjoyed watching me cook it. I know I did. It was very simple to make. These were ingredients that you have at home. The potatoes, the carrots, very easy things that you probably have in the house that are just sitting there. The extra things that I added here was something like celery. Maybe celery, it was optional. You could decide to use it or not use it. And then the peas here, again, peas are easy to find. You could substitute the peas with actually something like French beans if you felt like you couldn't get peas or maybe they're a bit too expensive. So again, always make it work for you with whatever vegetables you have. And you could also use other vegetables for this potato curry. Like I've said, it's a vegan dish, so whatever vegetables you have in the house will work perfectly for this. Just add whatever spices I added and whatever vegetables you have and make it your own dish, okay? So I hope you guys again enjoyed the recipe. I know I did. This has been Dinner Guide and I hope to see you guys in the next episode. Be sure to follow us on Brand Plus TV. I have been your host and chef, Sheena Amario. Until then, see you. Bye.